Bloxfruit has been deleting things from the game for years without telling you. Fruits you used, weapons you grinded, NPCs with absurd names. Today you're going to find out everything that disappeared. And why. Barrier. Barrier was a fruit that let you create green walls, spheres, towers, and traps out of nowhere. You could block attacks, trap players inside bubbles, drag fruit users into the ocean, and completely seal off the entrances to important locations on the map. And that last part is exactly why it disappeared. Barrier became the #1 trolling fruit in the entire game. Players blocked the entrance to the mansion at Floating Turtle. They sealed off the entrance to the cursed ship. They trapped people inside green bubbles and dragged them into lava simply because they could. The fruit wasn't broken in terms of damage, it was broken in terms of how miserable it made everyone else's experience. The developers removed it in Update 26 and replaced it with the Creation Fruit. Barrier is now admin exclusive, meaning only developers can use it. Which is honestly the most appropriate ending possible. The fruit that was used to ruin everyone's experience is now locked behind the people who run the game. Poetic justice with a green bubble on top. Chop. Chop was one of the original fruits. It came with the game from day one, January 16th, 2019. 30,000 coins, 100 Robux. Cheap, simple, and built around a single idea. Complete immunity to swords. Any sword attack, fire, ice, electric, magic imbued with aura, nothing could touch you. In the first sea, where almost every NPC uses swords, this made Chop one of the best grinding fruits in the game. So why did it disappear? Because the game outgrew it. The second and third sea introduced NPCs that use fighting styles instead of swords, and suddenly the entire identity of the fruit became irrelevant. A passive that made you untouchable in the first sea made you completely ordinary in the second and third. Chop didn't get worse. The game just moved on without it. It was removed in Update 24 and replaced by the Blade Fruit. And the removal was so complete that even the boss Bobby, who previously used Chop, was reworked. No NPC uses it. No player can get it. Chop just left, one of the few fruits whose rework left not a single trace behind. Door. Door was a natural fruit that cost 950,000 coins, and it was the best travel fruit this game has ever had. The C move opened an actual menu that let you teleport to any island on the map. Instantly. Any island. For fruit hunters, this was basically a superpower. So why did they remove it? Because it broke the effort economy of the game. In Bloxfruits, traveling is supposed to have a cost. Time, a flight fruit, a fast boat, a race ability. Door made all of that irrelevant. You could access the cursed ship without being level 1000. You could check every fruit spawn point in the time it took other players to cross a single sea. You could find the legendary sword dealer, the master of auras, any boss you needed, all without any effort. And in a game where progression is the point, a fruit that completely removes the friction of travel is a fruit that breaks the design of the game. It was removed in Update 17.3.5 and replaced by Portal. And while Portal is a strong fruit, it never really replaced what Door did for exploration. Portal is a combat fruit that happens to have teleportation. Door was a travel fruit that happened to be decent in combat. They're not the same thing, and veterans from the Door era will tell you that without hesitation. Kilo. Kilo was the cheapest fruit in the game. 5,000 coins, 50 Robux. And if you wanted a physical version, you could buy one from an NPC called Wenlock for 97 Robux. The concept was simple. You manipulate weight. You crush things with increasing amounts of mass. 10,000 kilograms, 20,000, 50,000. Every move was an AoE attack that broke instinct, which is really good for a fruit that costs basically nothing. The community had a recurring joke that Kilo was the best fruit in Bloxfruits purely because of how absurdly cheap it was. You could buy it, use it to break enemies' instinct, and feel like you'd gotten more value out of 50 Robux than people who spent 3,000 on a mythical fruit. Why did they remove it? Because it simply became obsolete. With every update, the game added more complex, more interesting fruits with more depth. Kilo was functional, but in a game that was constantly evolving, functional and cheap isn't enough to survive. It was replaced in Update 20 by Rocket. The Kilo Admiral still uses it. You can go into the game right now, find that boss, and watch the cheapest fruit in Bloxfruit's history being used by an NPC. You can observe it, study it, learn its moves. You just can't have it. Forever locked behind a boss that carries the name of the fruit players can no longer obtain. Dragon Classic. This one hurts. Dragon Classic arrived on December 23rd, 2020, Update 13. It cost 3.5 million coins or 2,600 Robux, and from Update 13 through 17.2, it was the most expensive fruit in the game. The king of the shop. You transformed into an Eastern Dragon. You gained 65% damage resistance in transformed form. You could fly. You had devastating long-range AoE attacks, and you had a color system. You could change your dragon's color by flying through colored hoops scattered across the map, unlocking green, blue, red, orange, purple, brown, yellow, white, and black, depending on your mastery. And then there was one more color, pink, admin exclusive. Regular players could never have it. They didn't even know it existed until someone spotted it in a developer's hands. It was the most iconic fruit in the game. The transformed model was the largest in all of Bloxfruits. It was what everyone wanted. Why did they remove it? Because the developers wanted to do something better with it. During Update 23, Dragon was pulled from sale with the message, "The King of Fruits is temporarily off sale for enhancements. Stay tuned for its powerful return." And it came back. In Update 24, Dragon Classic was replaced by two separate fruits, Eastern Dragon and Western Dragon. One fruit became two. The concept expanded instead of simply being updated. Players who had Dragon Classic kept it briefly thanks to a bug after Update 24. The developers fixed it and gave them Eastern or Western Dragon as compensation, which is generous, but it's not the same. Dragon Classic was an icon. Eastern and Western Dragon are its successors, and successors are never exactly the same as the original. Falcon. Falcon was a beast fruit of uncommon rarity, the only beast fruit of that rarity in the entire game. It cost 300,000 coins or 650 Robux, and it turned you into a human falcon hybrid that could fly and perform dash attacks. The community generally considered it one of the worst fruits in the game. It only had 3 attack moves with medium damage and no AoE. It was the cheapest beast fruit, both in coins and trading value. It was, in short, the beast fruit nobody wanted. Why did they remove it? Exactly because of that. Falcon had no identity of its own. It was a transformation fruit that didn't fully transform. The community called it half-beast because it didn't have a complete animal transformation. In a game where beast fruits like Dragon or Phoenix turned you into something truly impressive, Falcon turned you into a guy with wings that did medium damage. It was removed in Update 26 and replaced by Eagle. And honestly, nobody organized a funeral, though there's an interesting glitch worth mentioning. If you used the Z move and then switched to another fruit, your character kept Falcon's wings with all of its buffs. You only lost them when you died, switched teams, or left the game. So technically, you could have the wings of a fruit that no longer exists equipped on your character, which is the kind of bug that makes developers wake up at 3 in the morning in a cold sweat. Leopard. Leopard was a mythical beast fruit that cost 5 million coins or 3,000 Robux. The first fruit whose Robux price exceeded the price of the fruit notifier. You transformed into an anthropomorphic leopard that gained 33% cooldown reduction, approximately 66% speed boost, and 10% damage reduction. The community called it the King of Spam. Its cooldowns were so low and its moves so fast that you could use them almost non-stop. Combined with certain races and accessories that reduced cooldowns even further, the moves could be used in a practically continuous loop. Why did they remove it? Because it was too much. Not too much in terms of damage, too much in terms of how frustrating it was to fight against. A fruit that can spam moves almost without limit in a PvP game isn't a balanced fruit. It's a design nightmare. It was removed in Update 28 and replaced by Tiger. And the story behind that replacement is almost poetic. Yeti, another fruit that cost exactly the same as Leopard, 5 million coins, was considered its rival by the community. When Yeti evolved into Tiger in Update 28, it went directly to replace Leopard. The rival won. The King of Spam was dethroned by its own nemesis. Weapons. Bizarre Rifle. Bizarre Rifle was a rare gun that cost 25 ectoplasm, the special currency of the cursed ship, and was bought from the NPC El Rodolfo in the Second Sea. It was considered one of the best weapons in the game before Update 24. The Z move was a heat-seeking shot that automatically aimed at the nearest enemy. The X move, Hellfire Shower, had the highest damage of any gun in the game at that time, with a massive area radius and a burn effect that lasted long enough that if you combined the fire with a stun from another fruit, the enemy was paralyzed inside the flames, taking continuous damage. Why did they remove it? It was part of the major weapon rework of Update 24, which redesigned and renamed multiple weapons in the game. Bizarre Rifle became Bizarre Revolver. It wasn't exactly removed, it was transformed into something different. The name changed, the moves changed, the identity changed. The most ironic part is that it was incredibly cheap to obtain, 25 ectoplasm. The materials to upgrade it were easy to get. It was one of the best weapons in the game, and practically anyone could get it. That kind of accessibility combined with that level of power is exactly the kind of thing developers eventually have to fix. Refined Flintlock. Refined Flintlock was the upgraded version of the regular Flintlock. It cost 65,000 coins and was bought from the advanced weapon dealer at Marine Fortress in the First Sea. It was considered one of the best weapons in the First Sea thanks to its low price, low mastery requirement, and solid performance. Why did they remove it? Same reason as Bizarre Rifle, the weapon rework of Update 24. Refined Flintlock was renamed and redesigned as Dual Flintlock. It went from being one improved pistol to being two pistols. More weapons, more damage, more style. The removal of Refined Flintlock wasn't a loss. It was an evolution. But players who had invested mastery into it had to adapt to a completely different weapon overnight, which if you've spent hours leveling up a weapon's mastery, feels exactly as good as it sounds. Refined Musket. Refined Musket was the upgraded version of the regular musket. Unlike other refined weapons in the game, you couldn't buy it from any shop. It was only obtained as a low-chance drop from defeating the Magma Admiral at Magma Village in the First Sea. It had two moves, Dragon Bullet with good AoE, and Bold Pistolero, which could launch enemies into the air, giving you time to escape. It was useful in enclosed spaces like houses and caves, and had decent damage with good knockback. Why did they remove it? Update 24. Weapon rework. Refined Musket was renamed to Magma Blaster, with completely redesigned moves. Dragon Bullet became Scorching Burst. Bold Pistolero became Magmatic Pressure. The weapon you could only get by defeating a specific boss, with moves with epic names like Dragon Bullet, was replaced by something that sounds more thematic, but that for veterans will never be the same. There's something about the name Dragon Bullet that just hits different. Boats. Basic. Basic was exactly what its name suggested. A medium-sized boat, average speed, 2 cannons, 2 passenger seats, and 2,000 health points. It cost 1,000 coins. It wasn't the fastest, it wasn't the toughest, it wasn't the most impressive, it was simply basic. Why did they remove it? Because the game evolved and basic had no reason to exist alongside better options. It was replaced in Update 20 by Brigade, which did everything basic did, but better. The story of basic is the story of many things in Bloxfruits. It wasn't removed because it was problematic. It was removed because it was expendable, and in a game that constantly adds new content, being expendable is enough to disappear. Enforcer. Enforcer was the smallest and fastest boat in the game at the time. 1 seat, no passengers, dark gray and yellow appearance, banana shape, a turbo at the back, and a rolled-up white flag. To get it, you needed to buy the Fast Boats Game Pass and spawn it with the luxury boat dealer. It cost 1,000 of the Game Pass currency. It was the perfect alternative for players who didn't have a flight fruit, couldn't walk on water, didn't have portal, and weren't of the shark race. If you needed to move fast across the map without any of those options, Enforcer was your answer. It was also incredibly useful for finding Mirage Island, needed for the Race 5-4 puzzle, and for the Alchemist's Flower puzzle. Why did they remove it? Update 20, Boat Rework. Enforcer was replaced by Sentinel. And with the arrival of more mobility options in the game, the niche that Enforcer filled kept getting smaller until it simply wasn't needed anymore. Speedboat. Speedboat was a steel boat with a black sail and light brown seats. It had 2 seats and was the 3rd fastest boat in the game at the time. It was noticeably slower than the Enforcer, but it was completely free to spawn once you had the Fast Boats Game Pass. Free? 0 coins? Nothing. There's a curious detail about this boat. When you selected it, it appeared as Speedboat Free, but when you bought it, the message said, "Bought Rocket Boost for $0. Rocket Boost. That was the boat's original development name. The developers forgot to change the internal message, and for a while, anyone paying attention could see the name this boat almost had. It was removed in Update 20 and replaced by Miracle, and with it, disappeared the only free boat in the game for Fast Boats Game Pass users, and the only boat that accidentally revealed its own development name every time you bought it. Swan Ship. Swan Ship was a boat with a black swan figurehead and wings on the sides. 2,500 health points. 5,000 coins. And to get it, you first had to defeat Don Swan, one of the most important bosses in the Second Sea, to unlock it. It was the only boat in the game that could fire cannons at wider angles than any other, thanks to the cannons located at the front. And unlike the Enforcer and the Speedboat, it didn't require the Fast Boats Game Pass to purchase. Why did they remove it? Update 20? Replaced by Guardian. But the loss of Swan Ship carries a different weight than the other boats, because this wasn't just a boat, it was a trophy. You had to defeat Don Swan to get it. It was proof that you had reached a certain point in the game. When they removed Swan Ship, they also removed that moment of "I earned this boat." Guardian may be better in stats, but it doesn't have the same story behind it. NPCs, Norp. Norp, lowercase n because that's how it appeared in the game, was an NPC who sat at a round table in the cafe of the Second Sea. In exchange for 3,000 coins, it changed your race randomly between human, angel, shark, and rabbit. It always gave you a different race from the one you already had. Its dialogue was, "Hey sir, I will write something for you in JS that re-rolls your race to a random one if you pay me 3,000. Deal?" A nod to the fact that the character was a JavaScript programmer, which is the kind of internal humor that makes games feel made by real people. Its appearance was based on the old avatar of Norpers, a tester of the game known for using admin powers to make jokes, including creating the Rogue Fruit, which is basically an urban legend of Bloxfruits. Why did they remove it? In Update 11, fragments replaced rare artifacts as the main currency of the game, and Norp was replaced by Tort. The race change system kept existing, it just changed hands. But Norp had personality. Tort is functional, it's not the same. Lyandikit 12. Lyandikit 12 was a secret NPC located inside a cake castle in Cakeland in the Third Sea. It stood next to a red couch, in a room with large bookshelves near the Dough Raid door. Its only purpose in the game was to say a single sentence, releasing next update. That's it. It didn't sell anything. It didn't give quests. It had no game mechanic. It existed solely to announce that the next update was on its way. Its appearance was based on Lyandikit 12, a Bloxfruits tester. It was added in Update 17.2 and removed shortly after, possibly while waiting for the release of the Phoenix Awakening. It became famous in the community when the YouTuber Newbies made a video about it. An NPC that only says one sentence, hidden in a cake castle, that goes viral because someone found it. Why did they remove it? Probably because it fulfilled its purpose. It was a temporary announcement disguised as an NPC. Once the update arrived, Lyandikit 1.2 had no reason to exist anymore. It's the most honest NPC this game has ever had. It didn't pretend to be anything else. It was just there to tell you something new was coming. And when it came, it disappeared. Wenlock Toad Over Heaven. Wenlock Toad Over Heaven was the original Fruit Awakening NPC in the game. It was located in l'Église de Prophétie, the Awakening Room, and allowed players to awaken their fruits in exchange for fragments after completing a raid. When the player spoke to it, its name appeared in the dialogue box as King Wenlock Toad Sama Over Heaven, all in capitals, with the Sama, with the Over Heaven. This NPC had no inferiority complex. It was the first Awakening NPC in the game before it was replaced by the mysterious entity in Update 13. And while the mysterious entity is more mysterious and thematic, it never had a name as absolutely over the top as King Wenlock Toad Sama Over Heaven. Why did they remove it? Because Update 13 redesigned the Awakening system and wanted to give it a more serious and mysterious aesthetic. The mysterious entity fits that vision. King Wenlock Toad Sama Over Heaven, with all due respect, doesn't fit anything that takes itself seriously. And that's exactly what made it special. Thunder God. Thunder God NPC was located on the Mini Sky Island, a small floating island that you could only access by completing a Rumble raid. It sold the Pole second form for 5,000 coins, but to get there you needed to have Rumble fully awakened, 250 mastery in Rumble, and 180 mastery in the Pole first form. The Mini Sky Island still physically exists in the game. You can fly there with light. It takes approximately 5 minutes of continuous flight. You can reach the NPC. You can talk to it. You just can't buy anything from it anymore. Since Update 27, Rumble raids were removed, and the method for obtaining the Pole second form was changed. Thunder God NPC was left completely without purpose. It's still there, on its small floating island, waiting for players who can no longer complete the raid that would give them access to it, selling an item that is now obtained another way. 5 minutes of flight to talk to an NPC that has nothing to sell you. If that's not a metaphor for Bloxfruits, I don't know what is. It's the loneliest NPC in the game. Technically, it still exists. Functionally, it's been dead since Update 27. Items and mechanics. Rare Artifact. The Rare Artifact was a blue ball that dropped from Darkbeard in the Dark Arena, available from November 23, 2019 to July 10, 2020, less than 8 months in the game. It had a unique and brutal characteristic. It disappeared from your inventory if you died or reconnected. So when you got one, the clock started ticking. And it was worth running because it had 5 different uses. Getting the Flower Ship, obtaining Dragon Breath, the most sought-after fighting style of that era, getting the Kabucha, resetting your stats with the NPC Plockster, or changing your race with Norp. 5 uses. 1 item. That disappears if you die. Why did they remove it? In Update 11, fragments replaced rare artifacts as the main currency of the game. The entire system was redesigned to be more accessible and less dependent on a single item you could lose at any moment. But there's something worth mentioning. The YouTuber Kit Gaming has a rare artifact in his inventory, not the one removed from the game, one he kept before they took it away. A relic from an era of the game that no longer exists, stored in the inventory of someone who was lucky enough to be there when it was still possible to have one. That's game history in item form. Revive. Revive was a natural fruit of uncommon rarity that cost 550,000 coins or 975 Robux. It arrived in Update 16 and was removed in Update 21, renamed and revamped as Ghost. Its concept was completely unique in the game. You could revive after dying. The C move, Resurrection, gave you a second life if it was active at the moment of death. You came back with half your health. You could ignore one-shot combos. In a game where PvP can end in seconds, having an automatic second chance was an enormous advantage. The F move, Wandering Soul, made your ghost body immortal while you used it, while your physical body remained where you had activated the move. If your body was in a safe zone, it couldn't be attacked. You could explore as a ghost while your body waited safely. Why did they remove it? The concept of reviving was too powerful to leave as it was, but too interesting to simply erase. So the developers transformed it into Ghost. Same base idea, completely different design. A curious detail. When you revived as a skeleton thanks to Resurrection, the skeleton was actually a Roblox package called Skelly. This package removed your character's hair, and if you were wearing Roblox jackets, the jacket stayed on the skeleton, a Roblox bug that affected several games. So you could die, revive as a bald skeleton in a jacket, and keep fighting, which is a look, you have to admit. Soul. Soul was a mythical natural fruit that cost 3,400,000 coins, or 2,550 Robux. It arrived on December 31st, 2021 in Update 17.1 and was removed in Update 17.3.5, barely one full update after its launch. One of the fastest removals in the history of the game. Soul had a completely unique system. You collected souls from enemies using the Z move, and with those souls, you could summon creatures called buddies by clicking on the ground. The buddies were random. You could summon a toxic flower that poisoned nearby enemies, a cursed tree that stunned enemies with roots, or a candy that healed you every few seconds. It also had a calm and fury meter system. Using certain moves shifted the bar toward calm or toward fury. And depending on the state of the bar, your moves changed properties. The sun and cloud that always floated around the user changed appearance depending on the state of the bar. At maximum fury, the sun blazed intensely and the cloud turned dark purple with lightning. It was a fruit with enormous design depth. So why did they remove it so quickly? Copyright issues. Soul, along with other fruits from similar updates, was removed primarily because of intellectual property problems. The developers revamped and renamed it as Spirit, changing enough elements to resolve the legal issue. There's also a detail that was never resolved. There was a fourth buddy called Cannon that appeared in a leaked version of the game, but was never officially implemented. To this day, nobody knows what ability it had. It's somewhere in the game's files, without function, without history, without explanation. Treasure Inventory. The treasure inventory was the original fruit storage system in the game. It worked like the current inventory, but with one enormous limitation. You could only store one fruit at a time. The NPC had the appearance of a chest with a question mark and the text, inventory. Its background color was purple, unique among all the NPCs in the game. But the important part isn't what it looked like, it's what its existence meant. Before the current inventory, if you found a valuable fruit on the ground or on the map, you had to physically travel to the treasure inventory NPC to store it. If you died on the way, the fruit disappeared. If you disconnected, the fruit disappeared. If someone killed you while you were running toward the NPC with a mythical fruit in your inventory, the fruit disappeared. Finding a Buddha, a dragon, a venom on the ground wasn't a moment of joy. It was the start of a race against time and against every other player on the server who had also seen it. The treasure inventory was replaced in Update 17.3 by the modern inventory system. And while the new system is objectively better in every way, veteran players remember with a mixture of nostalgia and trauma what it was like to find a rare fruit and have to protect it with your life until you reached the purple chest. That wasn't an inventory system. It was an unofficial survival minigame. That's everything Bloxfruit has removed from the game. Fruits, weapons, boats, NPCs, entire mechanics that existed had their moment and disappeared. Some were removed because they broke the game, some because the game outgrew them, some because of legal issues, some simply because it was time to replace them with something better, and some, like the treasure inventory, like Norp, like King Wenlock Toad Sama over heaven, because the game decided to take itself more seriously, and not everything that existed at the beginning fit what Bloxfruit wanted to become. The cemetery of Bloxfruit is large, and it will probably keep growing with every update. If this video was useful to you, you know what to do. See you in the next one.